Hey, what's going on, guys? Today on the show, I have a fellow by the name of Michael O'Neill. Michael actually runs a podcast called the Solopreneur Hour. I actually found Michael, it was Derek Halpern of Social Triggers who actually shared an interview that Michael did with him. And, I checked out his blog, I signed up on his email list, and I really like what he's been doing. He's been, kind of hitting it really hard in the podcasting world. He's doing really well with his podcast. And, we had a chat probably about was it like a week ago? We got to talk over Skype, and I reached out, and here you are. I guess welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Sean. It's really good to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah,
Thanks for having
thanks.
me.
So, do you kind of want to share your story? I know you mentioned that prior to podcasting, you were where was kind of your start in like the online marketing world?
In 2009, I had just come back from a very kind of a very difficult time in my life. I'd had a very sort of big issue with, I suppose that there's a lack of a better way of saying it, but both my parents passed away, and I just spent 4 months in Europe spreading their ashes. I'm forgetting that. I have to look at a camera here. Spreading their ashes, and I'd come back from that trip with literally $14 in my pocket. So I had a big I had a big challenge, which was then what happens. I'm a dude in his late 30s, and I have to figure something out. And I'd spent the entire really my entire career as a web guy, a branding guy, identity guy. Worked a lot with clients, was a creative director, but realized that I never wanted to work an hour for $1 again. And I really committed to that. Kind of hell or high water, I decided that I was never going to take another job again. I really effectively became unemployable a few years before that. So I had connected with someone who, in Denver, his business model was, excuse me, was he would research a lot on Google for what was working, what people were searching for, and then he would literally go to Asia, find products to match those search parameters, and he would bring a container full back to the States, and then after a lot of SEO work and a lot of great web templates, would make $5,000 a day. So that was kind of my first exposure to internet marketing. From there, I got involved in a really great network marketing company called Isogenics for a few years. Met a lot of great people there, and then left to pursue a lot of social media training, very specific to sort of the solopreneur world.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I identify them as people that instead of trying to build businesses, they're trying to just build lives and financial freedom for themselves. That's what a solopreneur is. So you can think of a doctor even, or you can think of a personal trainer, or you can think of a real estate agent. Those are all examples of solopreneurs that aren't really trying to build like kind of a big brick and mortar company, but definitely have the same entrepreneurial mindset. And work with them for years, did a lot of kind of OEM and one-on-one and large group training. I traveled around the country quite a bit and did social media training for large groups. And then in February of 2012, worked with a man named David Wood to create a brand around the Kick-Ass Life, which he was a trainer. This guy's a sort of a professional reframer, if you will, and really amazing in front of an audience, and wanted a global brand. And I said, oh, why don't we do a podcast? Because I'm a huge podcast fan. And he said, what's a podcast? And now, a year and a half later, we've had 800,000 downloads, and it really turned into a whole thing. So about 2 months ago, not quite 2 months ago, I decided to launch my own show based on a lot of the relationships that I'd built over the last couple of years. And there was a show that I wanted to do, that I wanted to hang out with my friends and talk, all the cool solopreneur stuff, all the tech, all the apps, that kind of thing, and really get their stories and really make it actionable for people that are sitting in 9-to-5 jobs and really want to fire their boss. So that's why I created my show, and now it's on 3 days a week, and it's on iTunes. So that sort of gets us up to date. I'm sorry for rambling so long.
No, that's cool. So I guess you mentioned I've seen that that blog with David Wood, and I think it's called something related to the Kick-Ass Life. I have checked that out. So were you part of a podcast that was with him, or how does that kind of come about in your side of the story?
Yeah, I created the brand and the show. So I've been producing the show for about 18 months now. We're right in the middle of a brand transition, so if you pop over to the website, you won't see much to look at, but there's a lot of really amazing stuff going on for that. And then I also created another show called The Mechanic to Millionaire, where there was a guy, his name is Dave MacArthur, and he was literally a Honda mechanic 7 years ago, and now he makes about $23,000 a week. So he's really sort of jumped out and been this rockin' dude.
Wow, so you've really been kind of building relationships with a lot of these. I know that I checked out that fellow David Wood's blog, and it was like seemed like he was doing really well. I'd heard other people mentioning him.
Well, there's two David Woods as well. So there's one that is my guy, who's like a personal development dude, and then there's the other guy that does Empower Network. He's like the leader of Empower Network.
Yeah, no,
I work with the personal trainer, the training guy, not the Empower guy.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I figured because, I mean, I'm not going to go into it too deeply, but I used to be in Empower Network myself, so I know all about David Wood.
Right. I looked at it. It wasn't for me, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically, network. It's sort of like affiliate/network marketing for bloggers.
Yeah, and I think there's actually a lot of valuable training that they offer. That's really what they offer, is training on how to be a good sort of online marketer.
Yeah.
I wanted a little more oomph behind. If I was gonna sort of promote a brand, I wanted a little more there. So
that's sort of where in my direction, like that system was actually my first exposure to like the world of internet marketing. So I have to like thank those guys for what they did, but I just sort of got a lot of bad vibes from a lot of the community over time, and had some bad situations happen in my case. I won't go into them, but I ended up kind of in your case. Yeah, and kind of in your case, it's like the same as like I wanted to build. I had started my own website under my own name, and like it made sense to me to want to build that. And then obviously, like getting into the idea of doing interviews like that we're both doing. We have podcasts. It just is like a whole other entity, really.
Yeah. I love podcasting. I think I've been a huge fan for years. I mean, I've been a fan since Ricky Gervais. I listened to Ricky Gervais, and that was 2004, 2005, and This Week in Tech they were huge. I listened to a whole bunch growing. I don't want to say growing up, but sort of podcasting has been growing up. And then of course in the last couple of years, a lot of Nerdist, some WTF, Bill Burr, certainly Adam Corolla was the big one, and. He's really taken it to a whole new level. I mean, Corolla gets 400,000 downloads a day, so
wow,
he's quite a juggernaut at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I used to listen to some of his old stuff, like on TV when he did. What was that TV show back in the day?
Probably The Man Show, right?
Yeah, The Man Show. Yeah, I used to watch that quite a bit, and that was like one of my. I really liked that, so I knew of him from there, and he's a big fan of. Kind of funny to me, but he's a big fan of like Nissan Z cars, so he's got this old race car he bought, and I'm like a huge fan of those old cars. I have a restored one sitting in my garage, so that was
nice. In fact, I just saw him racing that at Coronado a couple weeks ago. That's when I actually had a chance to meet him and hang with him for a little bit.
Really?
And,
wow.
And it's the one he had there. I think was his 510 that was owned by Paul Newman at one point. It was part of the Paul Newman team, and it's gorgeous, really well done, like really super clean. And I got a chance to hang with his producer for a while, Jeff Fox, and talk to him for a bit. And when is this show going to air?
I'm probably going to put this up. I don't have an exact date, but it will probably be, I want to say, early November.
All right. Well, in that case, my episode with Adam Corolla will probably have launched for the show by the time this airs. So
cool. Yeah. So I'll leave a link. I'll hit you up and make sure there's a link so people can check it out. That's
you can check that out. I met him there and said, "Will you please be on my podcast for a half hour or whatever?" And he said, "Okay." So that's exciting. That's sort of my big celebrity get so far. But I'm working on a couple of others, so I'm excited about what the next month or two is going to bring.
Yeah, I'm kind
Today
of
I'm
like,
celebrating my best day, so I'm really excited.
yeah, if you want to, I know you mentioned that, like, we're both in a podcasting group. It's like sort of a, I don't want to necessarily call it private, but there's what, like 100 people in it on Facebook, and there's some pretty
Yeah,
big names in there. And I saw your post just like 10 minutes ago. You said you hit your top daily downloads for, of all time on your show.
it was good. Yeah, I'm excited. Every time it seems like Monday or Friday seems to be the big spike for me. I don't, how is it for you?
I'm kind of, I
When
actually,
do you air? What are your show days? I don't know when you air.
my right now I'm starting, like, my goal ultimately is to do one a week, but I've been
Mhm.
able to probably do between two and three a week.
Oh, okay.
So I'm staying consistent to the point where I'm making sure I'm doing one a week, but I'm actually getting, because I'm growing, I'm seeing more and more opportunity. And like literally I had a guy the other day, I'd been trying to get him for like 2 months, and he literally emails me, and it was like noon, and he's like, I can do it at 2 o'clock. And I was
Right.
like, what
That's what
the,
happens.
what am I supposed to do? And I told I still work a 9 to 5 job, so I told my boss, I just said, hey, can I take like an extra 15-minute lunch?
Yeah.
And I actually ended up taking like an hour and 45-minute lunch. I didn't get in trouble, thank God, but
Yeah.
it's worth it to me, to. I did the same thing. I had Andrew Warner on my show, and obviously to get Andrew Warner, he's a very busy man. To get him, I sacrifice, I come home in the middle of my day and take time off my day job.
Yeah, it's all
So
for fun. That's the best part.
yeah, exactly. And I like that, you mentioned too, like, you got Adam Corolla, like, it's not really so much a celebrity in my eyes, and he doesn't even really too much cater to marketing, but one of my favorite bands of all time, that are really, really, really heavy metal band, I reached out to the lead singer, and he said that he'd actually be on my podcast.
Oh, nice.
So I'm pretty like pumped. Like, it's almost like, in my opinion, he's like a big celebrity. Like, in my eyes, he's has obviously a huge following, and he has like a fitness community he's built. So I want to bring him on to even talk about that. I think it'd be great marketing to talk about how he launched it and
Yeah.
started his own fitness
Who is that?
business.
Do you want to talk about who it is or
Yeah, his
no?
name is it's kind of, I feel like it's almost embarrassing to mention the band name, because anyone listening to this, like, they'd probably be like, oh my God, like, who is it? The lead singer, his name is Brandon Scopetti, and he's in a band. It's actually, the band is called Bleeding Through.
Okay.
They're a crazy, crazy metal band, and
Nice.
they're like a huge inspiration on all the music I listen to today. And
Sweet.
yeah,
Well,
it's just really
it's
cool.
awesome, man. If you can talk to your heroes, it's really killer. I mean, it's a really fun way to spend some time. So that's great.
Yeah,
Good
I
for
mean,
you.
that's like what it's all about, and that's why I've been having so much fun with the interviews. I keep going because every time I talk with somebody, like, I'm building a relationship with them, and then I'm, breaking out into more connections, and just learning about what everybody does in their business.
Right.
I interviewed a guy a week ago, and he wants to, like, I'm gonna launch a product soon, like a an ebook, and he's basically gonna offer his product as like an upsell to mine.
Oh, cool. That's great.
So, a
Good
great
for
way to
you.
work together with people.
That's good. All
But
right.
I mean, I know we talked a little bit about, before we started, maybe about how, like, I've had a fellow on who's kind of talked like general podcasting. Do you kind of want to talk, like, obviously, I'm assuming you have like some connections out there helping, David Wood for, a good 2 years. But do you want to talk about like how you've been able to sort of like brand your show and get it out there? And I know you've hit over 100 reviews on iTunes, and you don't even have like 30 episodes yet.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. It's a complex topic. But I can hit the bullet points,
Sure.
which are I think this goes for any endeavor, by the way. This isn't just podcasting. This is if you are in a job and you really want to get out of the job, or even within your job, if you follow some of these steps, you'll achieve, I would say, more success and maybe quicker success than you would otherwise. So the first thing you have to do is pay attention to you, meaning that when you're out in the world, you look the part and you talk the part, right? So if you want to be successful, you've got to kind of dress and speak like a successful person. Because when you happen to find yourself in the situations where you are having a conversation with someone who could theoretically, quote unquote, do something for you, or is someone of influence or someone of power, you want to be taken seriously. You want them to look at you and think, okay, so this person's put together. They're not, I'm not at a dinner party and they're wearing shorts and flip-flops at the dinner party. Like you want to be taken seriously out in the world. And it's a piece. In fact, it's what today's show is on the Soulpreneur Hour. It's all about sort of your personal brand and the fact that as you walk out of your door from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., you are that brand. So if you want to get further in life, you got two things to do. Number one is to present yourself well and learn how to interact with people, and two, put yourself in the right position. Meaning that if you are a sort of a freelancer and you like to go to work at a Starbucks or something like that, don't go work at the crappy Starbucks in the bad part of town. Go to the nice part of town and work at the Starbucks. Go to the nice hotel and set up your laptop during a happy hour. Surround yourself with success at all times, because the adage is very true. You are the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So choose very wisely. If you have friends that are not going anywhere and they're not toxic, you don't have to hate them. You don't have to be mean to them, but you don't have to hang out with them all the time. And you can replace them with people that are doing something in the world if you want to be, somewhere. So they always say if you want to be a millionaire, hang out with them. So that's kind of the first thing, is just to kind of look the part and be the part. The second part is everything, whether it's your corporate gig or it's a podcast or it's internet marketing or whatever, it all has to do with relationships. I was very methodical and very intentional on creating relationships with some of the bigger internet marketers in the world that we know out there. The main one was Pat Flynn. We were both, when I was working on a product, one of my first online products in 2010, I didn't know anything about anything. And I not only emailed him very specific questions, it was like there was a couple pieces to it. One is that I was persistent, so I emailed him a couple questions, said, thanks, so I know you're super busy. What do you think about this and this? They were 2 very specific questions. He didn't get back to me for 3 times. I had to follow up with him twice before he actually got back to me. But by the time I asked him the question, I asked him a very professional and researched question. I was just like, how do you do a podcast, right?
Right.
Which is, you want to be seen by people as already showing some effort. You've already put some time and effort into this, and you've got a very specific question about a thing. And the next thing I did is, once he responded and he spent a little bit of time with me, I said, thank you very much, and I sent him a $20 iTunes gift card, because I wanted to be memorable. That was a thing that I really wanted to be. I wanted him to go, you know what, I've answered 1,000 questions and no one has ever done that. That's what I wanted. And I did the same thing with John Dumas in a different way. But once Blog World rolled around in 2012, which was it's now called the New Media Expo, I had primed the pump some more, and I said, hey, Pat, I would love to meet you and maybe have some coffee with you. We had also interviewed him on the Kick-Ass Life, so that helped. I said, you want to be on the show? It was a great interview. He felt really good about it, so there was another piece of the relationship there. And then I said, I'd love to sit down and meet for coffee with you. And we sat and we had a really great time. And then later on, we probably had too much to drink and romped around New Media Expo in New York City and really started a friendship. So when as things went further along, I would ask him, I said, hey, would you mind, I would really like to talk to Amy Porterfield. Would you mind sending me an introduction to her? And he said, sure. And then he introduced us. So then I said, Amy, would you be okay if we met for coffee in Carlsbad? So she lives in San Diego. Great. Met her for coffee. Did the same thing with John Lee Dumas. Did the same thing with all of these different people. Natalie Sisson, people that have now turned into my first few guests on the show, because it's first you create and cultivate a relationship, and then you leverage it. You have to leverage it, and not in like a Pat said that we should talk, but you ask politely, hey, I would like to meet this person. Would you be willing to, send me an email introduction? Same thing with Chris Ducker. It was the same deal. So I think once people get that you've got a little hustle in you and you do a little research and you're really ready to do this and make a difference, you're not going to be one of those people that we call ask holes, which ask you a question and then do nothing.
Yeah.
They don't take your advice. Um, Once you show, hey, you know what, you gave me this advice. Here's what I did with it, and thank you so much. I did that same thing to Cliff Ravenscraft. I had this amazing day. None of it would have happened if I didn't take Cliff Ravenscraft's podcasting 101 7 free videos on his course, on his website. So I reached out and said, dude, I just had this awesome epic day. None of which would have been possible, and if you didn't, put those free content up. Thank you so much. And I said, at some point, I'm going to surprise you and do something nice for you, which I will. I will make sure that I do something nice for him. So that's kind of the rough and tumble of getting. At that point, I can go and have a stroll with John Dumas and say, hey, dude, would you be willing to be my first guest, on the show? And he said, of course I would, because we're buds now. So it's like, okay, now I've got the hot hand. He's obviously the hot podcasting hand. He's doing 400,000 downloads a month.
Yeah.
And and not only that, but then I was on his show and got a ton of listeners from being on his show. So I think that's really the key, is to just create and cultivate those relationships, treat them like gold, because they really are. What you get out of a relationship is really, really gold, whether it's in business or personal, in your love life. You really have to cultivate the ones that are good. And I think once you learn the techniques of how to do that, which I just outlined, then you could take it anywhere. I have enough connections now that I could go in a number of different directions and get some good help with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I really like I'm actually working on I've kind of got like a product that I've created, and it's based around the product is based around a blueprint of reaching out to entrepreneurs and reaching out to successful people, and a bunch of basically stories about how I've been able to leverage and kind of do like similar things that you're talking about. I mean, I know, for example, like I interviewed, actually I think it was before, I have interviewed Pat Flynn, and I want to say, I can't remember if it was before or after I interviewed him, but what I did was, he launched his new book, Let Go, and, right. There were a lot of people who were like over on Amazon leaving reviews, and there was like one guy who left like this video review, and kind of like a little testimonial, I guess. So I was like, well, that's really cool, but there's like literally one person who's done this, and there's already like 200 people who've left these reviews. So I went and did the same thing, and I basically just modeled what this guy did, and then I sent Pat a tweet and just said, hey, I just left you a testimonial, go check it out, and then he thanked me and followed me back on Twitter.
Yeah,
so,
that matters.
Like said, and it's a way to stand out. And then I saw, it's funny because I interviewed him as well, Marin Barquette did the same thing, and his review is like, on Let Go is right under mine with a video.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that, I mean, if people don't, the thing is, when you start connecting with these people that have, really a lot of influence, and it's by no mistake that I've had the biggest influencers I know for the first 8 weeks of my podcast. That was, I mean, maybe I burnt my candle too fast, but the point was to accelerate and grow a mailing list and really get get a good foundation going, so that I could monetize and I could, say, look, here's where we are after 7 weeks. This is where I project to be after a month, or or 3 months, and that's enough to at least take to an advertiser and take a shot, and hope that, but when a guy named, a guy like Derek Halpern, a guy like Pat Flynn or John or anybody, sends a link to the show or tweets you, it'll move the needle for sure. You got 60, 70,000 followers that are like hanging on every word of these guys, that they're going to move the needle. So you really sort of pay attention.
Yeah, I know when Andrew Warner tweeted our interview, and I think I saw a pretty good spike that day, particularly in my traffic. So it's like really nice to see, that these guys are willing to help, and they have such large followings. I know something that I found pretty interesting. I've thought about utilizing more, but is this fellow I interviewed recently as well. His name's Navid Moises, and he actually he's been doing interviews as well. And what he does is he writes these long posts where he'll like kind of talk about all these entrepreneurs and people who are doing really well, and then he'll email them and just give a shout out and say, hey, look at this post I just featured you in, and then those people in return share it, and he'll get like, I think he said he got like 700 visitors in a day from it. Yeah,
it definitely matters. They'll move the needle. That's when you wish a guy like, and they won't all do it, by the way. Like, I seriously doubt Adam Carolla is going to go, hey, I was on this guy's podcast today,
Yeah, exactly.
blah, 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 right? Because just the name is enough for, because people are Googling and they're searching and they're, things like that. So it's it's enough, though, that there's a lot of sort of splash for it. But you also have to be ready for it, which means you've got to have infrastructure in place to capture email addresses. You've got to have your list building, your funnel sort of in place. And then a sort of a plan once you've gotten them. Is there an autoresponder series? Are you sending out content on a regular basis? There's a lot of moving parts to sort of having a successful online business career, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's if that's everybody who you're targeting, voices of marketing, but if it is, there's a lot of different pieces involved in how to make it work. So yeah, it's pretty interesting though. I like it. It makes things different and new and awesome every single day.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you've been like when I look at your blog, you've sort of done like, from the trainings and the things I've learned, it seems like you've got a lot of the things integrated, like the way that your email opt-ins are set up on the main page. Like when people go there's a huge incentive to go sign up to grab your ebook.
It's really the first thing that any marketer should do. That should be it. You should keep your head down and focus on building your list for the first, months or even a couple of years. You want to get, the general rule of thumb is if you get 5,000 people on your emailing list, you can make $100,000 a year just by doing webinars with affiliate sales.
Yeah.
I forget who that, James Wedmore, I forget who does that, but that was sort of his rule of thumb. Whoever the webinar dude is, I don't remember everybody's name, but that's the general rule though, is that, so that's really where you want to shoot for, is just how many can I get to 5,000? Can I get to 5,000? Can I get to 5,000? And that doesn't mean you can't build Twitter and Facebook. I with my new show, I started from scratch. I went 0, 0, 0, and I'm like, okay, and I'm 7 weeks in now. I don't know, 300 something Twitter followers, about 450 on Facebook, and about 500 on my mailing list. So
yeah, that's pretty good. I'm a little bit I'm a little bit ahead of you in the episodes, but I started in March, but I don't know if I'm cranking them out quite as fast. In June, I bought a house, so I didn't do anything.
Oh wow, yeah.
2 months. So, and I kind of like fell out of it for a bit, and then was like, you know what, I'm gonna keep doing this. I really like it, and I actually only just made my first affiliate sale from
congratulations.
Interviews. So I mean,
Sweet.
it's good, but even someone that and this is kind of just to go on your point, and I figured I'd share it. I know I'm backtracking a little bit, but you mentioned, obviously building relationships and connections, and someone that I interviewed actually found a job that was over on the Pro Blogger job boards, which I've been there a few times, but I don't really like go there on a regular basis. Like I wouldn't be there as much as say like a Craigslist looking for a job or a gig or whatever. And they were like, oh, well, this guy's looking for someone to do interviews, and it sounds like it fits right in your right up your alley. So I applied. Out of 100 people, I ended up getting picked. I think it's like me and maybe like 4 other people, if that.
Awesome.
And,
congratulations, John. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's great. And so every month I'm now going to submit one interview, but it's going to be like it's got very strict guidelines. Like it has to be evergreen content. It's really focused on a particular topic. Like I couldn't necessarily
you can't just
do
write whatever you want. You got to write something very specific.
Yeah, so I've been actually working on my first article. I've already put almost 10 hours into it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and, it's
That's
about
great.
5,000 words, so it'll be the biggest article I've written based around an interview. Most of mine, and I see like when Pat Flynn or some of these other guys do their interviews, like they post these crazy show notes, and like I try to come up with. Yeah, I mean,
they got people helping them with those things.
I try to keep up with it, but I'm like, oh my god, like sometimes I don't remember everything I talked about, and I try to, keep as much as I can. But with this one, I literally went back and I'm like listening to my interview again, listening to myself.
Right. Do you use Evernote while you're interviewing? While you're talking, like, are you using Evernote right now to record and write?
I do have Evernote. I use Evernote constantly, but I don't use it I don't usually take notes during my interviews. I just find it I don't want to be down here typing while we're talking,
Well, and I totally appreciate that, but my philosophy on that is it's not about me, it's about them.
True.
So if I can take better notes while we're chatting and put better show notes together, it's going to serve the listener a little better. Even if I got to look down for a sec, like I know what you're doing. It's not like I'm not going to go, oh, why you're being so rude? I can't believe you would look down and not look at me the entire time. So I think that's moving forward, that might be something that's understood. And it might help you, but I'll tell you the first thing I'm going to do is get a virtual assistant to help with that stuff. It's it's my next business move in the next couple of weeks, is that I'm going to go through Chris Ducker's virtual staff finder and get a virtual assistant.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I mean, my thing was I wanted to get to a point where I was making a consistent enough income that I could use the money both to promote my show and be able to do the things. Like right now, I'm literally running my, probably minus like web hosting, I'm running my entire show off like $15 a month.
Wow.
There's
that's
like
cheap.
literally it's just my autoresponder. I was using Libsyn, which, if for those of you who don't know, that's a media outlet for hosting your podcast episodes, and I was paying for that every month. But I don't have a big enough audience that I found it to be worth the need to pay for podcasting. So I switched to the free service, which is archive.org. You can just upload whatever you want, and I'm using that, and I'm tracking all of my downloads now through a WordPress plugin called it's probably the same one you're using, Blueberry.
Yeah. PodPress.
Yep, PodPress.
PowerPress. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm using that, and I have like their statistics, so I'm tracking all my downloads through that.
Cool.
And then it's just I figured now that I was actually able to land this gig writing for this magazine. Hopefully people will find me now because I'm going to be writing sort of epic content compared to what I've been doing.
Right.
And then, the first person I interviewed that's being submitted to this is Steve Cam, he's huge. A lot of people know who he is from Nerd Fitness.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's great.
Yeah, I mean, that's podcasting in general has just been really great. Like, because you've been able to build a lot of these relationships and scenarios, and I've been able to talk with people. Like a lot of times, I don't know in your case, like, and it's something I wanted to bring up. Like you do hour-long shows, like that's sort of like the tagline to your show.
It is indeed called the Solopreneur Hour. That is true.
Yeah. So I thought it was like, for me, I know when I interview people, like I know I've seen other interviews where people have someone on and they do like 25 minutes and then it's done, but I tend to stick around the 40 to 50 minute mark, and a lot of times if they're able to do it when the interview's done, we'll stay and chat for another like 20, 30 minutes.
Right.
And that usually you can basically pick people's brains. So it's like to do interviews, some of these people you might be paying hundreds of dollars of their time otherwise if you're just some Joe Schmo.
Yeah, if you can keep them on the blower, it's nice to have a little chat with them.
Yep. Yeah, so I've learned a ton just from that alone, just being able to talk with some of these people who are, six-figure earners from online marketing, whatever it is that they do online.
Yeah, right on. Unfortunately, that can't be me tonight. I'm supposed to go to a networking event at 7:30. So.
Oh, really?
We'll see if I can pull that off. I'm Pacific. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's about 10 of 7, so I'm still I'm good for about 10 more minutes.
Yeah, no, that's cool, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, we got, like in our case, obviously, we chatted before, so I already got to kind of get to know you. Do you kind of want to talk a little bit about that, too? I thought it'd be cool, like for, because I know, John Lee Dumas has sort of monetized his show in that way. I thought it'd be interesting for you to maybe talk a little bit about how you're planning, or what is you're currently doing to monetize your podcast, and how you're going about that.
Well, it's kind of a two-phaser. I think when you're brand new, you can certainly use affiliate links, to Bluehost and Audible.com and anything you can think of, Amazon, to monetize with the appearance that you've got sponsors or something. Like, you could always say this podcast has been brought to you by Audible, that kind of thing. Though today I legitimately got the first sort of podcast sponsor that's paying me per episode in the sort of John Lee Dumas model.
Yeah.
John, pardon?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, and so I did that, partially because I had these relationships with these people. my downloads have been pretty good out of the gates. Today, I mean, and again, it's all relative. It's all depending on your audience. 400,000 comedy listeners might buy as much as 5,000 business listeners. So there's you can't compare apples to apples, unfortunately. Depending on your content, depending on how people interpret what you do and how much credence they put into your word and your expertise, you could have 1,000 listeners a day and crush it. Just depends on how you kind of navigate them through. If there are things that they want, if you're able to deliver them, whether it's affiliate or a product that you create yourself, you can make a pretty dandy income. So
yeah,
my first month podcasting, I think I did 23,000 downloads, I think, for the month. So
wow.
Just under what is it, Libsyn? I gotta look at my Libsyn stats real quick.
Now, were you maybe featured in the business listings? Like, did you get your podcast in like one of the? I know if you sort of launch right, you can get it featured.
Yeah, it was number one in business in new and noteworthy almost the entire time I launched. It moves up and down a little bit. I'm top 20 in business generally. I've hit 8 was the highest I've hit, and that's business in general. That's not like management and marketing or careers, whatever. That's like the overall bigger topic. So at one point it was Pat and then Entrepreneur on Fire and then me or something. It was like 7, 8, 9 or something in business, which was kind of cool. So let's see, September I did about 22,000 downloads. In October I'm gonna do let's see, what is it today? It's October 21st. We have 10 days left and I'm at about 30,000. So I'll probably do 45,000, 50,000 in October.
Wow.
Yeah, so something like that. And so it's not gonna blow anybody away from it's about 2,000 a day ish. It's enough to at least have a conversation with an advertiser and say, hey, would you be willing to pay a couple $100 per episode and try it out for a month and see how it goes?
Yeah.
Which is basically what I just did. It wasn't. But what I did do is I did leverage this upcoming interview with Adam. So I said, look, this thing's going to happen. It's going to air this date. I'll give you exclusive rights to this if you want to advertise with me for a couple months. And that's how I landed this one. And then Stitcher Radio wants to do some stuff with that because they have a huge, Adam Corolla listening contingent, so they can cross promote. If you like Adam Corolla, you'll love him on the Solopreneur Hour as an interview. So hopefully I'll get a few listeners from that.
Yeah.
And again, it's just about leveraging these relationships you already have. Once I have those, and they're once you get your first sponsor, it's like, hey, I've got Audible as a sponsor. I'm trying to fill up, October and November, and in December, would you like to do 10 drops or whatever, 10 drops for the month, which is a drop is for a podcast. Often they do a little 15-second pre-roll where it's kind of hey, this episode's brought to you by Audible.com. Listen to audible.com/solo hour or whatever, whatever it is. Right. And then during the middle of the show, you sort of stop and you can either do a live read and just say, hey, by the way, this thing's brought to you by Audible.com, and do a whole, minute talking. You can even talk to your guest about it and say, hey, what do you think of audiobooks? And kind of do a live read that way. Or you can record it ahead of time and just splice it in post-production. Which obviously makes for a cleaner, more professional kind of sound, but it depends on how comfortable you are just going off the cuff. That's kind of where I like to live, is that off the cuff world. So
yeah, I figure, obviously, maybe if you let the people know that you're going to be interviewing prior to starting, hey, in the middle of the show, I'm going to throw this in here for 10 seconds or whatever.
Right. There's going to be probably a live read that's going to come up, and I'll it's funny if I do it. I was just thinking about that. I'll probably have to do that with Adam Corolla, but he does it all the time on his show. So I was actually thinking, be hey, do you want to do this Audible read for me real quick, since you love live reads so much? But yeah, totally. So it's you never know if people are super comfortable with it, or But I think it's just it's a necessary. I think advertising as a point of sustaining your show is a necessary evil.
Yeah.
And you can figure out one way to do it. Pat Flynn didn't really have to do it. John didn't have to do it, but he did.
Yeah.
And now he's making about $25,000 a month just from his advertising sales. He's got eight advertisers that he rotates throughout the month, and they each pay whatever they pay, and he does 2 per episode. So he's on 7 days a week, and let's say I don't know what they pay. I think they pay more, but even if he pays if they pay $300 a month or $300 a show, that's $600 per episode times 7 per week.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's $3,200 per week just from that, or no, $4,200 just from that. So, he did his first income report this month. I don't know if you saw that on his website.
I did. It was like over 50,000.
Yeah. So there's definitely opportunity there, and just little tricks that he does. Like he'll just do little things as he's sharing content with people. He'll put a little link to, hey, download your free audiobook here or whatever, and then it'll lead back to another commission. So
right.
It's just being creative with it, I think.
Now, I'm curious too. I thought I'd ask about this. I know, and John did a similar model when he had like a private mastermind where he let in about 100 people, and you pay on a quarterly basis. I know, recently our chat was kind of like geared in a similar way from what it looked like. You were, basically forming, a potential mastermind, based on, obviously you still have a new podcast. You had 500 subscribers. Like, what kind of response did you get from a lot of the listeners? Like, did you have a lot of people that were coming to you that were really interested in the mastermind idea?
Yeah, I don't remember how many. So I have a separate list in my emailing software. I think I use Aweber.
Yep.
For the mastermind, I think I got about 75 through there, just sort of leads, and then I talked to about 40 people, one-on-one, and of the 40, I think I got a handful of no's, maybe 10 no's, probably 15 maybes, and like 15 yeses or something like that. And I think that number will change and grow once there's something that actually exists. I can say, all right, here's the deal, here's the buy page, here's exactly what we're going to get, here's how it's going to be set up, blah, blah, blah. So that's all things I'm working on this week, and we'll see how it goes. The thing with the mastermind in general is once people enjoy your teaching style and the way you disseminate information, if they feel like they can trust you and they think you can help them, then creating a team training or a mastermind is a great way to do that. Yeah. It's great for me because I get to actually spend more like one-on-one time instead of, when we talk into this mic, it just goes away, right?
Right.
We get sporadic feedback and people say, yeah, that was, I was really inspired by this and this and this. But it's cool to have the chance to be able to really talk to people and be like, all right, I see what you're doing here with your logo. Let's tweak it a little bit and maybe work on your intro, and then you've got a beautiful, interface for your new business or whatever. So I really look forward to that as a challenge. It's certainly more responsibility, but when people pay for it, they're more invested in it, and they're less than 1% of people take action. So I want people that are actually trying to take action. Just like I said earlier, when I wrote my message to Pat Flynn, I had to show him that I had some hustle before he would truly want to help me. And I think that's what the mastermind concept does. It shows the people that have the hustle, that are truly willing to put in not only the time and effort, but put a little skin in the game to help train themselves and improve. Because you should reinvest about 20% of what you make from your business back into your business and into you from a learning standpoint. So that's kind of the whole point of the mastermind.
Yeah, no, I think it is important. I know there was a great, I don't know if you've seen it, but Pat has a post. It was actually a guest post by Jamie Tardy of The Eventual Millionaire. It's a couple years old now, if not, I think maybe it was in 2010, I think. But there's a really, really great post over on Pat's blog, Smart and Passive Income, about creating a mastermind group and like how powerful that is. And
there is?
Start one.
I
Yeah.
didn't see that. I will definitely go check that out actually, because I
Yeah, I'll send you a link and you can look at it. He has a couple on his blog, but there was one in particular that it was just very detailed, and I almost feel like that's sort of like, in the whole world of like
yeah
training and what people are doing, like you don't really see, like I almost feel like someone could create a course on it in itself.
yeah. I mean, from the research I mean, masterminds have been around for a while, and there's a lot of schools of thought. There's there's people that will say, well, you can't unless you only have like 4 or 5 people, which is really a true mastermind, if you
Yeah.
will. I think we're differentiating between an online mastermind course and a real sort of one-on-one, you're in a Google Hangout kind of mastermind
Right.
course. But we will have, at least with the one I'm putting on called Solo Lab, I'm going to have little masterminds within the mastermind of people that are like-minded and doing sort of similar things. Like if there are a group of podcasters, we're going to have a little podcast track, and
Yeah,
if
yeah.
there's internet marketers, we'll have an internet marketing track. And so that's for me the way I'm solving that. But we have such great technology like this and 22 Social and all kinds of cool ways to record video and ways that you can reach out still in an intimate way and connect with a group of people, you know? So that's really at least what my mastermind is geared to do, and I think Pat is probably perfect. He probably has an amazing blog post on that.
Yeah,
So
no, I'll send you a link and you can check it out, and I'll even link in the show notes for anyone who wants to check that out as well, because it's really just a great guideline on kind of, getting started. I mean, even though the concept is simple, but for anyone who might be new starting out, I mean, you can go on some of these online forums and just look for other people who are in a similar spot as you and help one another out, and use that as a way to sort of build your business and stay motivated.
yeah, yeah, agreed. Awesome. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so we'll see. We'll see how it goes by the end of the week. I'll have a much firmer idea of sort of where it's going.
Yeah, no, I mean, I look forward to see what you're working on, because I know that, John has his thing going on where he's going to be launching. It might already be launched by the time I post the interview, but he's got his Podcasters
Yeah.
Paradise, which is like exclusive, podcast membership. He's been promoting that like crazy, and
Yeah.
it's interesting to see like how people have been able to monetize. I know, I talked a lot with Andrew Warner about how he was able to monetize his interviews and build his membership site and get a lot of those guests and stuff, and it's just really interesting that what some of these guys are able to do. I know David Siteman Garland, he does a lot of the advertising as well, where he's mentioning like what did you call it,
The live read. Yeah.
the live read. Yeah,
Yeah.
he does that in his
I'd like
show
to
as
talk
well.
to him. He's another one that I'm sort of working on a relationship with at the moment. I haven't met him yet, but I'd like to create one with him and really chat with him on the show. I really like what he's doing. So
Yeah, you should definitely get it. I don't know, did you he has a course, it's called Create Awesome Interviews. Did you go through that course by
I
chance?
did not.
You
No.
did not? Yeah, it's a great course. That was kind of how like I got into this whole thing and went through that, and that was sort of my like introduction to interviews, so to speak. But yeah, I know that there's a lot of really really great guys that I've been trying to connect with as well. He's someone on my list myself that I'd like to reach out to. I'm trying to keep things to a point where like I don't want to have too many interviews scheduled out, and then I want to keep them like spaced out and not be overwhelming myself.
Yeah. Yeah. It can definitely get there for sure.
Yeah, but I'm sure as you can tell, like now that your audience is building, like I had my first person this month reach out and ask me if they could be on my show.
Right. Yeah. I think that'll come a little more often for
Yeah,
sure. I know
so
that for a while John had scheduled Thursdays to be on other people's show. He would do like 6 shows a day.
yep.
And I know he's not doing that anymore for 2013. But he'll be back, I'm sure, next year doing them. He's just super
Yep.
busy with all the other stuff. So.
Yeah, he had actually he had scheduled an interview with me. It was actually supposed to be on the 16th, just a few days ago, but he had to cancel on me like shortly after we had scheduled because of that very reason. He was working on his new products, and he basically had to hold off on the interviews with others until next year. So I told him, that just kind of, in my opinion, it just gives me that much more motivation. Like he had already said yes, so in my mind,
Right. Yeah, he actually had to make a hard decision and cancel. He had a bunch of interviews that he had to cancel, and he was.
yeah,
I remember I took a stroll with him, and he was bummed out about it. But it's like that was yeah. So whatever. It'll be all right. It'll be all good. He'll be back on the plan.
Yeah, no,
John, I'm
I
so
mean, I've
sorry.
got.
I have to run. I'm so
Oh
sorry.
yeah,
I've
no
got to get to
problem.
this event. I've got to be there in 25 minutes. I still have to change and such. So I'm sorry to sort of cut this a little
Oh no, it's
short.
cool. I think we covered a lot. I really appreciate
Cool.
you coming on, and we got to talk a lot of great topics here. So
Good.
for anyone who's listening, go check out Michael's podcast, The Solopreneur Hour. It's over at solohour.com.
Yeah, I made that easy because it's hard to spell solopreneur, so I just made it solohour.com.
Yeah.
All those E's and U's are very difficult for people.
All right. Well, thanks for taking the time out of your Monday night to come on my show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and good luck. I love the show. I love your. It seems like you're rocking. So you're certainly
Yep.
talking to the right people, and we'll see you at the top, as they say.
Yep. All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.